Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I hated the rain. I was sitting in the cab of the car, watching the raindrops hitting the windshield and listening to them drumming on the roof. It was not a pleasant, soft summer rain. It was a washout of ravines. When the wind was blowing, I could see the jets of water flooding the parking lot. It wasn't a hurricane, but it definitely looked like the newscasts you saw on TV. The air conditioner on the buffet roof just had to wait until it stopped. There was no way I was going to go up to the roof and work on anything until the weather cleared up. Damn it, I shouldn't even be here. Wednesday was my working day in Allentown. Of course, it was an emergency, and I was the most qualified person for the job. In fact, no one else wanted to travel that far on a service contract. The buffet is part of the motel. It was one of the old hotels with an outside entrance, but this was offset by cheap prices. I think more people used the restaurant than the hotel. Right now, most of the guests were checking out. The maids were under an outdoor awning, closer to the building to avoid the rain. The wait was long and boring until a beige Volkswagen convertible pulled into one of the nearby parking lots. I couldn't see the license plate from the other end of the parking lot, but I swear it looked exactly like my wife's Bug. Amanda and I have been married for almost 20 years. We had 2 daughters. Colleen, who turned 18 and starts full-time studies at Kutztown University 3 months later, and Brenda, who had just turned 16 and was now in full-fledged Gothic rebellion mode. 2 perfect opposites. Although Amanda and I went to high school together, I really got to know her later when she worked as a waitress at a local diner. The time I spent at school was not the happiest in my life. For as long as I can remember, I've had a terrible stutter, and the teenage fear that accompanied it was terrible. I became withdrawn and sullen. I spoke only when it was necessary and then, as a rule, as few words as possible. My teachers were ordered never to call me to class. I do not know if it made it easier or harder for me. Most of my classmates thought I was an imbecile. I've never felt this way because I didn't have any reference points. I always knew when I was being used or bullied in some way. Sometimes I resorted to physical means to stop certain types of harassment, and it always seemed to work. I was halfway through finishing a technical course on air conditioning repair when I finally managed to get to know Amanda. In fact, the first time she took my order at the diner was the only time I spoke to her. I didn't date anyone at school for obvious reasons, and I had absolutely no social skills to talk about. For more than a month, all I did was order food, eat it, and leave. With generous tips, of course. Amanda was always polite and pleasant. I was comfortable being around her. It took a lot of courage on my part, but in the end I asked her out, which she readily agreed to. She didn't seem to mind that I let her do all the talking. When I did say something, I tried to speak in monosyllables. She was well aware of my speech impediment, but she deliberately tried not to mention it in any way. We dated for a few months before things got serious. By this I mean sexual desire. The first time it was obvious that I had no experience at all, but she was very understanding and was able to get us through it without much embarrassment. Although I never mentioned it, I had a distinct feeling that she had done all this before. I really felt that this was her business, and that I didn't need to know what she was doing before meeting me. We had a small civil ceremony right after I graduated from technical school. I had a full-time job waiting for me, and the salary was better than I expected. Amanda continued to work at the diner until Colleen became pregnant. From that moment on, she became a full-fledged wife and mother. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Life was good. Just out of curiosity, I kept trying to make out the number on the Beetle sign, but because of the heavy rain, it was impossible. A silver Mercedes parked away from the Beetle, and a man with an umbrella got out of it. I was impressed with the way he coordinated the movement. He walked over to the Volkswagen and opened the driver's door. I felt my stomach twist as I watched Amanda get out of the car and hug a man. They half ran, half walked to the hotel canopy. They were laughing when he closed the umbrella and took the room key out of his coat pocket. I've been sitting in the parking lot for over 2 hours. The rain had stopped, but I didn't care. I got out of the car just enough to go to the Mercedes and get the registration number of the car from the glove compartment. Finally, they left the room and, still laughing, headed back to their cars. Before getting into the Volkswagen, Amanda gave her gentleman friend a quick kiss on the cheek. This is how a wife kisses her husband, not her lover. She never noticed my car parked on the other side of the parking lot. She didn't seem to be paying attention to anything except her companion. I cried as I watched them both leave the parking lot. I still haven't fixed the air conditioner in the cupboard. It took less than an hour to get back to the workshop. The boss was upset that I had not completed the task, but this was replaced by extreme disappointment when I informed him that I was quitting. He didn't argue with me or demand an explanation. When I got to the bank, I cashed my exit check and withdrew all but $6,000 from various bank accounts. The savings account was to be used to buy a new house, and the money market account held money for the girls' college. Now they were both empty. While I was driving to Kutztown, I realized that Brenda would never go to college. The only thing that was below her grades was her attitude. I couldn't figure out what I'd done to turn her against me, and I was afraid to ask. In fact, she was as confident in her mother as she was in me. Colleen and Brenda were raised exactly the same, but they became completely different. I felt a small pang of guilt, which quickly passed, as I paid for Colleen's college tuition in advance for the full 4 years. It was close enough to home that I didn't have to worry about dorm fees and a meal plan. Amanda was at home when I arrived. As always, I took off my wet shoes at the front door. She came out of the kitchen to meet me. "John, what are you doing at home at this hour? I thought you were supposed to be in Allentown all day." As I walked past her into the bedroom, I smiled and gave her a quick peck on the cheek, just like she had kissed her lover 3 hours earlier. She looked puzzled when I didn't answer her question. My first bag was half packed when she entered the bedroom. "John, what the hell is going on? What are you doing?" She just stood there while I continued to pack my things. All I took were underwear, shoes, and my work clothes. "Are you going to answer me?" "What happened? Just because you had a bad day at work is no reason to leave. I'm guessing you're leaving because you're packing up. Answer me, damn it. I'm your wife. You're supposed to share this with me." I stopped for a moment and looked in her direction. She knew better than to interrupt me or try to speed up my speech. "I didn't work in Allentown today." There was no hesitation, no stuttering. It was a simple sentence, but I pronounced it perfectly. Amanda stood silently, waiting for me to continue. I finished packing and stopped again. "I was working in York today." It was another short, simple phrase, and it sounded perfect too, slowly and coolly. As I was getting my shoes out of the closet, I noticed my wife quietly leave the room. She didn't say anything. She was sitting on the couch in the living room when I went to the front door. It only took me a moment to put my work boots back on. I looked back one more time before I left. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry as she watched me walk out the door. She gave no explanation or apology. I was near Hagerstown when my cell phone rang. Under the circumstances, I think it would be easier for me to communicate if I learned how to send text messages, but just using a mobile phone was an achievement for me. It was Colleen. "Hi, Dad. Where are you?" "Hagerstown. Mom told us you'd left, and I just wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine." "Dad, is there anything you want me to do? Is there anything I can do to help?" "No. It's hard to have a long dialogue with someone when the words don't add up smoothly. There were a million things I wanted to say to my daughter, but I didn't feel strong enough to do it." Mom told Brenda and me what happened. She didn't go into much detail, but we both knew for a long time. I'm not glad it happened, but I'm glad you finally found out. Did you and Brenda know about this? For about 3 years now. I did feel stupid. Don't, Dad. Don't do this to yourself. You are a good father and a good husband. Never think otherwise. I didn't answer her. I didn't know what to say, and I didn't want to talk anymore. It was too much to digest in one go. My stomach was turning over, but I wasn't hungry. Dad? Dad? Are you there? Are you okay? I'll be fine. By the way, I paid for your school tuition for you. You're ready to enroll. I don't care about that. I care about you. Thanks, honey. It's time for me to go. I turned off my phone without giving her a chance to say anything else. I was having dinner at Cracker Barrel in Harrisonburg when I noticed a small job advertisement for a room maintenance manager with an emphasis on air conditioning and heating. After a short phone call, I had an interview scheduled for the next morning. In fact, I had never had an interview for any job before, so I was a little worried. My obvious speech impediment did not contribute to my confidence. If I can do it, fine. If not, then nothing is lost. Oakbrook Meadows was a small nursing home associated with the church. It was old and looked like it had been attached to it several times. There was no structure or organization in the entire institution. It was a hodgepodge of buildings that desperately needed help. "Good morning. You must be Mr. Tyson. My name is Don Watson. Do you mind if I call you John?" It's all right." We shook hands and I sat down. Over the next 30 minutes, Don Watson gave me a full history lesson about Oakbrook Meadows and confirmed the complexity of the enterprise. My initial observation was about money. It was a non-profit organization, and they had problems with funding to keep it open. More than 100 retired elderly people lived there as long as they could keep working. When they became too sick or old to take care of themselves, they were legally transferred to a government institution. The costs of outsourcing all repairs and maintenance were so burdensome to their budget that they considered closing the entire establishment. Hiring a full-time maintenance manager was a last-ditch effort. They haven't had much luck so far. The salary they were offering was really bad. The advantage was the use of a small apartment in the basement of the main building and meals in the public dining room. It took me 3 days to make the apartment habitable. The food was delicious and convenient. It seemed that everything would be fine. I was happy. There was a fully equipped workshop with a bunch of assorted manuals and spare parts. Air conditioning and heating didn't seem to be a problem, but I had no experience with things like dishwashers, stoves, and built-in refrigerators. The plumbing difficulties confused me, but I got over them. I spent the whole weekend researching the insurance policies of the facility. At first, everything went quite slowly. After dealing with a few things that needed immediate repair, I took a full inventory of the items that required or will require some kind of maintenance. I tried to balance the situation a bit so that I could combine a few simple jobs with more complex ones. It would make everyday work a little easier. Of course, critical issues were a priority. It took only a few weeks to get used to a comfortable daily routine. I was busy with business during the day, and at night I took care of making my new home livable. I kept my mobile phone charged but turned off. I had a landline phone for work and an old Windows 7 computer that I set up to monitor maintenance. Don was happy with my work, and I was happy with the overall situation. Life was good. It's been more than 3 months since I left. I decided to call Colleen on her birthday. It was my first contact since I left. I was surprised that no one tried to contact me, and depressed that no one cared to try. Of course, my phone was turned off almost the whole time. "Colleen, it's Dad. Says happy birthday." "Dad, how nice to hear from you. Your phone was turned off. Where are you and what are you doing? I was worried about you." "Slow down. One question at a time." "I'm fine. I have a DD job and a place to live. I'm more worried about how you're doing." "Everything is fine at school. I live in a dorm room with 2 other girls. I stuck to the meal plan instead of going home for a snack. I have a part-time job at a diner near campus. Do you need anything?" "No, I'm fine." "Is everything else okay?" "No, not really. Mom is, of course, very depressed. She told Brenda and me about what happened. I don't think she's sorry for what she did, but she's sorry she got caught. She got a job at Zinn's diner, but I don't think she earns enough to keep the house. She sold all your tools and junk from the garage and is selling furniture. The last time I talked to her, she said she was going to contact the bank about mortgage payments. I think she's going to get the house back." "It's a shame. It was a good house." "Oh, by the way, Brenda is missing. A few weeks after you left, Brenda and Mom had a big fight. In case you didn't know, you're not Brenda's biological father. It's some guy from Gettysburg named Samuelson. I think this is the guy she was dating the day you found out. Anyway, Brenda left and sent a postcard from San Francisco. It seems that I am the cause of a lot of suffering." "No, it's not like that, Dad. Mom brought all this on herself." "Colleen, give me your address. I'll send you a power of attorney to make it easier for your mother to get rid of the house. You don't have to do this, but it would be easier for Mom." The staff did not eat with the residents of Oakbrook Meadows. They ate a little later and in a separate part of the dining room. By this time, I had made friends with other employees and several guests. I don't know why I thought of them as prisoners, but it seemed appropriate. Ivy James soon became a regular at my dining table. Ivy was in charge of the laundry at the facility. In fact, she was a laundress at the institution. Most of the residents did their own laundry at the public laundry, which I also had to take care of. If there was a way to mess up the washing machine or dryer, they quickly found it. Ivy was about 40 or so. She wasn't a dazzling beauty, but she wasn't a crocodile either. I found out that she was single and had never been married. She worked hard and was in pretty good shape as far as I could tell. She lived with her parents, and they dropped her off and picked her up from work. What set her apart from everyone else and made me like her was that she was deaf. In the blink of an eye, I found myself spending more and more time with Ivy. She had a small notebook on a strap around her neck, and she used it when needed. She usually got along fine without him. She was a pretty good lip reader, and for some reason I didn't stutter when I was with her. I didn't even have to say the words. I could just say them with my lips. It calmed me down a bit. She never made me feel embarrassed about her illness. Our relationship improved when she invited me to spend Thanksgiving with her family. Her parents and sister were not hearing impaired. Her mother and sister both spoke English. Her father was good-natured about it, but relied on the two women who translated for him. They quickly noticed my stuttering and tried to direct the conversation so that I could minimize the number of conversations, but still feel included. Overall, it was a good experience. Ivy and I became close. The Virginia School for the Deaf was 30 minutes away in Staunton. I had no problem signing up for evening English courses, even in the middle of the semester. I didn't say anything to Ivy, but she realized something was going on when I started paying more attention to her gestures at different times. When I finally told her, she was beaming and offered to stay late to help me with my homework. The school explained that it would probably take about 2 years to become proficient enough to have a simple conversation, but I needed to start somewhere, and I was motivated. The work was good. I had a kind of personal life, but I didn't really date anyone. With each passing day, the pain I felt due to the breakdown of my marriage decreased more and more. Colleen called and told me she was coming for Christmas. She didn't ask me, she told me. How could I refuse? There were several guest rooms available at Oakbrook Meadows, so it wasn't difficult for me to book one for her. I was a little worried about her meeting Ivy, but it wasn't necessary. As soon as Colleen realized that Ivy was deaf, she started gesturing. She wasn't very good at it, but she was good enough that the two of them could talk for a long time without me. Colleen took 2 courses when she was still in high school and was able to get advanced training when she enrolled in college. Of course, dear old Dad didn't know anything about it. It seems that she has already decided to specialize in special education in Kutztown. As a result, we spent most of the Christmas holidays with Ivy and her parents. Of course, I still had to do the repairs. Everything seemed to keep falling apart, despite the fact that it was a holiday. Colleen didn't seem to mind that I had to leave her sometimes. I was a little embarrassed when Ivy kissed me under the mistletoe, but Colleen seemed to enjoy my discomfort. Before leaving, Colleen casually mentioned that she thought Amanda was still in touch with Jeff Samuelson. It wasn't what she said to Colleen, but just small hints and things that she accidentally said or referred to. Colleen had the feeling that she was planning something that was going to happen in the future and was looking forward to it. 2 weeks later, I was satisfied. She didn't ask for anything. She just wanted a divorce. I signed everything and sent it back to her lawyer. There was only one thing that bothered me. I was furious. She used me, took advantage of my position, and then she felt like she could just throw me away when she didn't need me anymore. It was wrong. I know. I left her and opened this door. It was still wrong, and I wanted to find some kind of balance. I was happy with my new life, and usually had to just accept my luck and move on. I couldn't do it. Ivy didn't gloat when I told her about the divorce, but it was obvious that her mood had improved a little. She was still the same as before, but better. My nights were sleepless as I kept thinking about being used. My pride was destroyed. She screwed up, and I was the only one who got hurt. I know this is how it usually happens, but I still didn't like it. I needed to calm down. It was Monday at 6 a.m. I was drinking coffee at the Ugly Mug Cafe in Gettysburg, waiting for Jeff Samuelson to leave for work. He left the house at 7 a.m., just as I arrived. I dressed up a little to meet Mrs. Samuelson because I didn't want her to feel awkward. I had no idea what I was going to tell her when I rang the doorbell. Although it was still early, she was already dressed. I was afraid she would be in pajamas or a bathrobe. Yes, can I help you? Mrs. Samuelson, my name is John Tyson. I was hoping I could take up a minute of your time. Are you selling something, Mr. Tyson? I don't think we'd be interested in that. No, madam. This is a personal, matter concerning your husband and my wife. She stood silently, deep in thought. I couldn't figure out if she was going to ask me to leave or invite me in. Is your wife's name Amanda by any chance? Isn't it? Yes, madam. Please come in, Mr. Tyson. We really need to talk. Marie Samuelson and I spent the next 2 hours together. When I left to go home, I wasn't sure if I was feeling better or worse. She had suspected something for several years, but she had never been able to come up with anything concrete. She was calm and stoic most of the time, until I told her about the brand. Her whole behavior has changed. That's when I decided it was time to leave. My job was done. The first thing I did when I got back was tell Ivy everything. I couldn't have started a relationship with her if we had secrets. She seemed to understand and took a little extra time to try to comfort me. Everything went back to normal. Ivy and I were looking at the house. We were too old to have a family of our own, but Ivy was interested in either foster care or adoption. We explored the possibilities and found out that our chances of adopting children with hearing impairments were quite high. The people in Staunton would be more than happy to help us. Dad, this is Colleen. I didn't expect a call from my daughter in the middle of the night. Hello, everything is fine? Not really, but you have nothing to worry about. I'm at the Baptist Hospital in York. Mom got shot. She's fine, but I felt I had to call you. Good. Now you've got my attention. What the hell happened? What I can piece together is that Mom and Mr. Samuelson were having dinner at Cracker Barrel when Mrs. Samuelson came in and emptied a .22 revolver at them. All the shots missed except for one, which just grazed Mom's right arm. It wasn't serious, but it required medical attention. She's going to be discharged in a couple of hours. I'll stay here, and then I'll take her home. What happened to her boyfriend? He didn't get a scratch, but he suddenly disappeared before the cops got there. He just left Mom in a quandary. Mrs. Samuelson was sitting in an armchair and calmly waiting for the police to arrive. I suppose there's no reason for me to come there? I'll get her home. I'll call you later. Oh, I forgot. Mom is very angry that her boyfriend ran away from her. I've never seen her so furious. Thanks for the call. But, by the way, leave me free for a while in early April. Your dad is going to, get married. Congratulations. I'll be there, of course. Oh, I won't tell Mom. It would really crush her right now. See you. As I hung up, I thought I'd better tell Ivy something about the upcoming wedding. This is how the saga of a quiet, cold-blooded man ends. He bought a house and moved in with his new wife. They adopted 3 children and raised several more. Colleen got a job teaching at a Virginia school for the deaf and got married a year later. John continued to work at Oakbrook Meadows, but Ivy did not. Amanda still works at the diner. Jeff Samuelson was never seen again. Life is wonderful.